When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Trap House Podcast. This is episode 32, and today we have Kent Weil on with us. He's from Illinois. He's heavily involved behind the scenes with the National Trappers Association. He's a general organizer, and he's been supporting trapping for a long time, and obviously he's a trapper himself too. So we're going to talk about some certain current things going on in the world and kind of get his background story. But before we do that, just want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Couldn't do it without you. We have Top Lot Stretcher Company. They are toplotstretcherco.com. Visit their website. I talk about their adjustable stretchers all the time. We're big fans of them. Of course, they have trapping supplies and other gear also you can find on their website. Also, Jeff Haggerty's J3O.com for J3 Outdoors. Check out their website. Maker the Hags bracket. He's got all kinds of stuff on there. It's USA made, veteran owned. Puts a quality product out there. Appreciate Jeff and everything he does as well for the trapping community. And obviously, got to give it up to Hoosier Trapper Supply, home of Top Dog Predator Bait and Jet Fuel Predator Lure. Check that out at HoosierTrapperSupply.com. We got the links there for trapping kits, lure bait, urine, all the tools you would need out in the field. You name it, we pretty much got it. And if we don't have it, we can try and find it for you. Last but not least, join an organization, please, please. Right now, more than ever, we are under fire and under attack. I'm sure you've seen on social media or heard on this podcast, we talk about some of the anti-bills that have popped up and that are in the works currently. The best thing you can do is join an organization, either Fur Takers of America, National Trappers Association, or your state level. Anything, we'll preach that constantly. So let's dive into it. Let's talk to Kent. All right, we got Kent on the show. He's going to talk to us a little bit about trapping and the NTA and some of the things going on around the country. And Kent, can we just start with a little background? Normally, our guests we have on, we kind of start there and how you got involved in trapping and involved in the organizations and that sort of thing.
Sure. I'm born and raised in Central Illinois, and I started trapping when I was 9 because I listened to stories from my grandfather, who was a sharecropper, basically, in South Central Illinois, and he talked about catching a mink during the Depression, and it fed his family, for almost a month. Of course, they were farmers; they had a lot of their own food, but so that sort of intrigued me. I got interested. I got a few traps donated to me, and the first year I trapped, I caught a possum and a rabbit, and that was pretty much enough to hook me.
What year
the
was
next
that?
year? That would have been in 67 maybe.
Okay.
The next year I started trapping muskrats as I read the Bible at the time, which was Hawbaker's North American Fur Bearers, right? Trapping North American Fur Bearers. It was about the only thing that was out there. So I started trapping muskrats, and I caught a dozen muskrat that year, so I was pretty proud of myself. And it pretty much all went from there. Actually, to this day, all things being equal, I'd probably rather trap muskrats than anything else. So I pretty much trapped ever since then. I've never been into putting up numbers. I've never wanted to work that hard, really. And but I've always enjoyed, finding little fur pockets and trapping for whatever is there. I'm a generalist. I like to trap anything that's there. I've caught every species in Illinois now except for a least weasel and a badger. So those are on my bucket list.
So you've caught the long-tailed weasel?
Yes, I have. I've caught 2 of them.
Okay.
Both of them in fox sets. You explain to me how a long-tailed weasel managed to spring a number 1 3/4 Northwoods.
Yeah.
Jumping up and down on it like a trampoline, apparently.
That's the only way I can think of they could have.
So much for paying attention.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've never caught one on purpose, and I've tried the weasel boxes and all that. I've just never been successful. It's kind of hard to find sign unless you're out there when it's snowing. So,
Well, you're two up on me because I've never caught one, and they say, well, brush piles and whatever, but I mean that
old building.
Yeah, it's not like we're overrun with them anyways, like they are in the northern states where they got quite a few. So
I probably caught about 2,034 whitetail mice and voles, but
Yeah.
Never caught a weasel.
The Illinois, did they have a legal badger season?
Yes, they do. The state split into 2 zones, and the northern zone you can catch 1 badger a year, and the southern zone you can catch 2.
Okay.
But as you guys might know, badgers are pretty. You've got to have the right type of really right soil type in order to have badgers. And where I'm at, it's solid clay, and
Okay.
they don't seem to have that much.
I think they just like a sander type soil. Generally, we just don't have them here to speak of up in they're kind of random to say the least. And then in the northern part of the state, particularly up where they have the Trappers College, that's pretty sandy soil up there. And there seems to be a fairly decent population of them up there, but they're fully protected in Indiana.
Yeah, well, they're not rare in Illinois. It's just you're not going to run into many of them. It just amazes me that anybody ever manages to catch one, because it looks like you've had an excavator out there working on it. I can't figure out how they don't get the stake pulled out.
Evidently, they just always pull and dig as far out as they can. Otherwise, the stake would be out of there.
Apparently.
So have you caught a bobcat
everything
yet?
else? I did.
Okay.
I've not caught a bobcat that I could keep yet.
Okay.
I've not drawn a tag. We passed the bobcat season in Illinois in 2015. It was vetoed by the governor, so we started all over in 2016. And in 2016, here in Illinois, we had a lot of opposition from HSUS, Humane
Sure.
Society of the United States. And they put about $1 million into a campaign to try to convince the Chicago area legislators to vote against it.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked at it. We had a pretty good coalition working for it. Our IFOR, our Illinois Federation of Outdoor Resources, is it's a group. They represent about 140,000 sportsmen in some 60 different sporting groups. So we have a pretty good presence at the Capitol, and we got it passed with a lot of opposition, but it passed pretty readily actually. So we've had a bobcat season since 2016, and I've applied every year. I've caught 2 bobcats that I've released, and I caught one last year in a coon trail, in a 220 and a coon trail, and went through the whole process of calling DNR and having them come out and take possession of the cat. It was unfortunate because it wasn't a big cat. It was a younger tom, but it was, for Illinois, had a nice wide white belly. It was a shame to give it up. But that's the rules. Now, my wife, on the other hand, the first year she applied for a tag, she caught a bobcat, which doesn't seem quite fair somehow.
Yeah.
Does she remind you of that sometimes and rub it in, or?
Oh yeah, just about every trapping season. Especially when I catch one and don't have a tag for it.
Yeah.
We had hers mounted. I've been hunting up in northern Minnesota that year, and it shot a very nice rough grouse. So we've got it mounted with the cat leaping at the grouse. So
Okay.
it's pretty cool.
Well, I guess while we're on the subject of bobcats in Illinois, it has been a bit contentious, even though you guys have a season in your state.
Yep. We had the state legislature is going to introduce an anti-bobcat bill every year. I mean, that's just the nature of things. Generally doesn't get any traction, or hasn't so far. This year it did move very quickly into a committee, and also was very quickly called for a hearing, which was a little scary. So we mobilized everything we could against it, and the sponsor at this point has pulled the bill. Now, that doesn't mean it's gone. He could bring it back just about any time he wants, and I expect we'll probably get another glimpse of it in the veto session this fall.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those ever things. Illinois is. I get asked a lot, how does Illinois passed an otter season in 2012 and a bobcat season in 2015, and we've passed a myriad of other little pieces, like we passed a bill so that we could keep fur year round. Cleaned up a lot of language. We've worked with the conservation police a lot with legislation, and we've done this all in Illinois, where there was a Democrat supermajority in the House, a supermajority in the Senate, and a Democratic governor. I would highly advise any group that's working to pass or stop legislature in a state legislature to scrape, beg, borrow, steal, do whatever you can to hire a lobbyist. It just the difference between an all volunteer bunch of people trying to work the legislature and a lobbyist who knows the ropes is just immense. The difference is just immense.
Well, as you know, Indiana, we proposed a bobcat season 2019, was withdrawn after huge outcry from the public. Trappers stood alone without a coalition. We got our odd.
That's tough.
Yeah, we got our otter season really without a hitch back in 2015. There was some opposition, but small. And I think probably trappers maybe took it for granted. I'm not blaming trappers, but because the trappers in general came forward, but probably took it for granted that it would come through and really didn't organize a coalition or constituents. And we certainly didn't have it didn't, that was within the Natural Resource Commission, and then it would go to the DNR, and ultimately the governor would have to sign it. But so I'm not sure, you can tell me, maybe would a lobbyist help in that situation?
Well, I don't know, because I've never worked with one, but I will tell you what, I see more problems with these commissions than I see with the DNR having to deal directly with the legislature.
Okay.
It's hard to find the pressure points with the commission. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
With a bill gets introduced, we've got sponsors, you've got co-sponsors, you've got individual legislatures that you can go after, and they are they're beholden. I mean, they all want to get reelected, so they're beholden to their constituents. I don't see that happening with a lot of the commissions. I mean, Ohio's in the same boat as you guys are.
Yeah.
They've got a commission. They've got as many or more bobcats than we do, the same as you guys. But the commissions are just very hard to work through, apparently.
Yeah. We have a group here in Indiana called Sportsman's Roundtable. It's just a group of organizations, for the most part, consumptive organizations. Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, that kind of thing. So hopefully, when this gets reintroduced, hopefully sooner than later, that we're hoping that when it comes around next time that we have a much better chance.
That sounds like our I4. I mean, the same sort of group, but it's hard for trappers to do anything on their own.
Well,
you just don't have a number.
Right. And unfortunately, I kind of get the impression, and I've been told by some that trappers are kind of the redheaded stepchild in the community of outdoorsmen, and we're a minority, in the sense that we're not in the deer hunter numbers or the turkey hunter numbers, or certainly not the fisherman numbers. So I don't know that that's necessarily. So I don't think we get the attention sometimes that maybe we need. But
Well, and we don't have a great image with the general public. So when the antis are starting something, we're sort of the low hanging fruit,
yes,
we have the same problem that a lot of these organizations do. I'll give you an example. In Illinois, there were about 7,000 trapping licenses sold last year.
mm-hmm.
Less than 10% of those people belong to the Illinois Trappers Association.
Yeah,
and less than half of those belong to the National Trappers Association. Now, some of them I know belong to fur takers too, but there's a lot of crossover there too. A lot of people belong to both.
right.
It's very difficult when you go to a legislator and you're trying to lobby for or against a bill, and his very first question is, well, how many members do you have in my district?
Yeah,
Just saying. There's a
13.
there's 118 legislative districts, state house districts in the state of Illinois.
Yeah,
And we've got under 700 members. So yeah, you're telling the guy, well, we've got like 3, and he looks at you like, well, why are you taking up my time?
yeah,
The one single thing I think that could boost trapping in these state legislatures is for people to join these state organizations.
sure.
I forget who said it a long time ago, but somebody said all politics is local. And while the national problems are there, and they're great, without a doubt, most national problems don't affect all trappers like a state legislature would affect all trappers in the state of Illinois.
Sure.
And yet those people are much more accessible than the legislators in Washington. You've got a chance to really make a difference there. I was involved in the legislature and politics. Well, my dad was a lobbyist for the Illinois Federation of Teachers, so I've been involved in it all my life. And as much as we all complain and diss the system, I believe in the system. And the system, if you work it, well, will work for you. But you got to get away from this whole idea that, well, I don't like to get involved in politics. Well, if you don't want to get involved in politics, you're going to lose your rights. That's basically what it boils down to. Because the other side has no problem getting involved in politics. If we can't have our presence there as well, then we have no voice.
Right. The behind the scenes with the lobbyists too, probably becomes quite important than people. I mean, everyone needs to, I think people need to show up at these committee meetings where they allow the public to come in and talk if they can. And evidently that was an issue in New Mexico. We haven't talked about New Mexico, but evidently there was an issue where people weren't even allowed to get up and tell how they felt about it, particularly if you were opposed to the issue.
Yep. Yep.
So
and that was a commission, I believe.
Yeah. So that behind the scenes is pretty important.
Yes. And if you get a decent lobbyist, he's got relationships with legislators, and because let's face it, as a state trapping organization, I'm not going to be able to hire a lobbyist that all he lobbies for is me.
Right.
We don't have that kind of money. I mean, very few of these state organizations have that kind of money. So you're contracting a lobbyist to work for you. Well, that lobbyist also works for a whole myriad of other people. And so he knows these legislators on a lot of different levels. he'll have a pretty good idea who he can go to. Like if we've got a bill that we want to promote, he'll have a pretty good idea of who the best person is to go to sponsor that in the House, who's the best one in the Senate, and how to work that legislation through. It's not that we can't do it ourselves. We can. I've seen people do it, but it takes a lot of work. You got to do it every day, and you got to stay right on top of it. I mean, when the legislature's in session, it's a 40, 50 hour a week job, and the learning curve is pretty steep. If you've got people that don't know what they're doing, by the time they figure out what's going on, you've lost whatever opportunity you might have to affect the legislation.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's better just to hire the person that knows what to do from right out of the gate, obviously. So, and those sessions, I mean, there's not that much time in the scheme of things.
No, not really. Well, here in Illinois, the bills get introduced in January, and they go to a rules committee that decides what type of legislation it is, and then it gets assigned out to a committee, and then that committee will have hearing on the bills. Well, typically, unless they extend it, typically the committee hearings have to be done by the end of March. So that's only a couple months, really. So the sponsor is trying to get that legislation out as quickly as they can because they want to get it to the floor and they want to get it voted on and passed. Well, our whole goal is to stop this stuff in committee.
Sure.
I don't want to have a floor fight. I would much rather get it stopped in committee, where you don't have that many legislators you're trying to deal with. People can make a real impact in the committees. It's like you were saying. Many states now you can file an electronic witness slip. It takes about 2 minutes to do.
Yeah.
Every trapper in the state doesn't do that when one of these bills comes up is beyond me, because it does make a difference. They do look at those numbers. How many are for and how many are against?
The people that introduce or sponsor these bills, have you found, is that because of people coming to them and saying, hey, we need to take care of this, or is it a pet project of theirs, or a little of both? Or
it can be both. I think a lot of times they do it when a constituent group comes to them. And to be honest, we sometimes approach this the wrong way. Like when a sponsor introduces a bill, like against bobcat trapping, for example, we immediately go very antagonistic, right?
Sure.
Well, a lot of times that legislator has no idea what he stepped in. He doesn't understand. He might not have any hunting or trapping background, in any of his family. So he doesn't have a clue. It's our job to educate him. And without trying to be condescending or antagonistic. I mean, if many legislators, if you can show them the data, show them the science behind it, you can mitigate a lot of that. And we typically almost always have the science behind us. That's the one great thing we've got going for us.
Yeah. That's interesting, and that's a good point, that how to approach that. And I guess, obviously if it was someone that's their pet project and they've got this, they've been members of the HSUS for a long time, or who knows, you're probably not going to persuade that individual.
No.
But if it's someone that just got caught up in the moment.
Exactly. We just had, it wasn't a trapping issue, but we just had a dog bill that was introduced about basically tethering dogs. And the way it was written, it would have put like field trials out of business, right? You know how you put a dog out on a stake in field trial? You know, I mean, on a whole myriad of situations like that. Well, the legislator had a constituent come to them and showed them pictures of this person who was abusing the dog, had the dog staked out on a chain in a yard in sub-zero temperatures with no shelter. So they were appalled. Well, we got to stop this, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't understand the implications. They don't understand that there's a lot more behind this, and that there's already laws to stop that person that was abusing that dog. You didn't need to introduce a new law. You just needed to get in touch with the right authorities and apply the correct law to keep that from happening. So they talked to the legislator, and the legislator really doesn't want to completely withdraw the bill. They've got a little face to save there themselves.
Sure.
But they're willing to work with the hunting dog people to get the bill written in such a way that it doesn't have any impact on them. And that's where I'm saying, if you'd gone into that legislator and yelling and screaming at him about how horrible this bill is, and it's a HSUS bill, and what do you think? You think that guy would have decided to work with you later on? Probably not.
Yeah.
So you want to find out what's behind it first before you start going,
Right.
full tilt at them. Because a lot of times you can work with them.
Well, that's kind of interesting too, is, if you go to these, listen to people that are opposed to us, a lot of times they're bringing up stuff that's already illegal or stuff that you can't do. With that bill there, it clearly sounds like there was stuff already in place to prohibit that dog being in that situation, so.
Sure. And a lot of times with the trapping issues, there's already stuff in place. A guy was setting traps illegally or whatever. There's already laws in place. Unfortunately, trappers can be their own worst enemies sometimes with this stuff. And we've had that conversation, Charlie, several times.
Oh yeah.
If social media is going to be the bane of our existence, and certainly is going to be the bane of trapping if people don't understand that information that you post is there forever. The guy's got a kid and he caught his first raccoon and shot the raccoon in the head, but they're so proud of that raccoon, and they take a picture and it's got blood coming off the head, but the guy's so proud of his raccoon, right? His son's raccoon. So he posts it on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, and they don't think about what the possible implications of that is.
Right.
Somebody lifts that picture with no context, and it doesn't look real great for us.
Yeah. And there's unfortunately been things posted that are much worse than that.
Oh yes.
And sometimes it's like, there's kind of this idea that trappers' perspectives, well, we're not sugarcoating, we're not here to appease the opposition, but it's not about appeasing them, you're just fueling the fire, so.
I don't care about the people that are on the other side. I'm probably not going to change their mind.
That's a very good
What
point.
What I do care about is that 80% of people that sit right in the middle.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about trapping. All they know about trapping is what they're hearing from either the antis or from us. And we certainly don't help our cause by posting that kind of content on social media.
Yeah. I think
those people are the people that are going to decide whether we have trapping in the future or not.
Yeah.
It's not really going to be us, the trappers, and it's really not going to be the antis, HSUS, and those folks. It's going to be those people that don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah. And I think generally they don't care. So when this stuff comes to a forefront, I think whoever can get the most common sense based message out there probably is going to come out on top.
I think you're right. I mean, look at and HSUS is a master at it. Okay, look at those look at that stuff the commercials that they post about that poor dog limping along on the street. Yeah. Or they pull at your heartstrings. It's hard for trappers to promote ourselves that way,
right?
Because we are consumptive, and that's not a bad thing. I think what we need to push really hard on is the fact that we're the greenest part of the garment industry.
For sure.
We don't see that promoted a whole lot, but we need to have some sort of a national push for that. We are the most sustainable part of the garment industry and have the least carbon footprint of any of it. So we're a great deal, right?
Yeah. And the idea of that carbon footprint, sustainability, green, something,
Gee, I wonder where you're going with this.
Well, we'll just make it so. We've got common ground. Let's put it that way. So, with people that maybe not necessarily would agree with trapping per se. That's part of where I'm going. The other thing is Grunwalds have been trying to promote that, fur as being green, that kind of thing. And then they're with their certification process as well, which, started with, I think NAFA started that originally. I don't know. And then Grunwald picked it up. I don't know how that.
Exactly. Well, NAFA was in it originally. I don't know if you heard of Furmark.
Of what?
Have you heard of Furmark?
I don't know.
That's the organization that's promoting this in Europe.
Okay.
In fact, they have now tied in with fur harvesters, and fur harvesters are now. I saw Downey, the president of Fur Harvesters, posted a letter on the website about how they've joined in with Furmark. And the whole idea is traceability. They want to be able to tell you, or the consumer wants to be able to know where the fur that's on their garment came from, and was it sustainably produced? Was it humanely trapped? So this is what they want. In fact, I talked to Guy Grunwald a month or so ago. We've had several discussions about this whole sustainability and traceability, because I'm very interested in this. And he says that in China, I believe the number he used was 75% of the millennials over there in China want to know that this is sustainably produced.
Mm-hmm.
Now that just amazes me that the people in China care that much for it.
Right.
I never would have anticipated that.
I think that certainly is generational, and obviously, I guess I'm surprised by that too. And I don't know that it's a bad thing. Certainly not. It's holds some level of accountability there, for sure. And if it, and grown walls are smart, so they realize that they're going to have to come up with some sort of program, so.
Oh, without a doubt. And he's jumped right into this. They've made great strides in just the first year. Their goal is to be able to individually tag pelts.
Mm-hmm.
So so that, when the buyer buys them, they can bar scan them and know exactly where that pelt was caught by Charlie and sold by Charlie Mashett, in Indiana.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's easy to do with the CITES stuff, but it starts getting a little more complex when you start trying to tag and barcode, every pelt that comes into your place of business.
Right.
Right. Starting with coyotes, which of course are high dollar. So there's the cost of doing it. It's a great place to do the learning curve because there's a little bit of money to play with there. It's trying to tag every individual coon or muskrat is going to be a whole different story.
I don't know. On that, do you think the idea of just following the laws of the state that you're in is adequate?
Well, that's
the starting.
That's Grunwald's approach, and I think that is the approach that needs to be. We are we've got to be the most regulated part of the whole, agri-industry business. Every trapper has to be accountable for how his fur was caught, how it, whether they're following all the state regulations, which there's a myriad. Try going from state to state and keep track of how different they are. So that's his approach. That we're already doing this. It's not like we have to provide anything new as far as on the trapper end. All we need to do is be able to trace the fur back. And that seems to be. I'm not sure how it'll play out with Furmar, on the European end, but Grunwald sells most of his fur to China, and they're perfectly acceptable with that approach.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens with Furmark. Furmark came out of the ranch meat, the ranch fur industry, which is a whole different ballgame because you've got a ranch that produces 10,000 pelts, and you've got how many trappers does it take to come up with those 10,000 pelts, and how scattered are they across the country?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a logistical.
We'll see how that works.
Yeah. So we maybe got ahead of ourselves a little bit. So Kent, you've been involved with the NTA for quite a while. Well, I'm assuming originally involved with the Illinois Trappers Association, maybe.
Right.
Then you got involved more in the NTA. Were you a director first, or?
Yes, I've been an NTA director for 7 or 8 years now, and I'm impressed with the NTA. I really am. The first time I went to one of the national meetings, where you got directors from all over the country, I was just, I'd hung around a bunch of trappers, right?
Yeah.
This was a very professional meeting. I was very impressed. I think this is where we need to be. This is what we need to promote. And when I say the NTA, that's what I've been involved in. I've also been to some of the board meetings for FTA, and both organizations have a place, in the continuity of this whole thing. Each one of them has a specialty. The NTA has got the chops to deal with national legislation, national lawsuits. They're able to put a lawyer or personnel into some of these fights, like in New Mexico. And FTA has pretty much made their mark with education, and you need both of them.
Yeah,
you can't have one without the other and be successful.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of crossover membership
Yes.
between
Yes.
between.
I'd
the two.
say 70 or 80% of the people that I know belong to both organizations.
Yep.
As well as their state organization.
Right. And then 2 years ago, you were elected as general organizer for the NTA.
Correct. And then we had that fall because we take office the end of July, after the convention.
Mm-hmm.
And the general organizer, I see the general organizer as kind of the link between the state associations and the national association. You're sort of act as a go-between. You representing the NTA within a lot of the associations. So of course, there's not much going on in August, but things start heating up in September. And I went to, I think, 3, 4, or 5, I guess, events that fall. And then, of course, COVID hit. And I think I'd already, in January, I had planned to go to 9 different places, 9 different, meetings or banquets or conventions. And every one of them got canceled.
Sure.
So it was sort of a year, for general organizer, it was sort of a year that
Did you get the year off?
was gone. Well, not exactly. I mean, we worked on other things. The NTA has done quite a bit in the last year. We now have a permanent home in your state, in Bedford, Indiana. We bought a building, and the building will allow for expansion. I know John Daniel, who's the president, has high hopes for doing some sort of interactive type exhibit for the Trapper Hall of Fame, the NTA Trapper Hall of Fame. Certainly the office staff needed more space than where we were at. And I don't know about you, but leasing when you can buy just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So, of course, we didn't have a convention last year. So we've had to be fairly creative fundraising. Some of that's gone really well. Some of it maybe not so much, but you learn from it. And
Sure.
I think a lot of the stuff that we learned in the last year, even when we're going to have a convention this year, we will still incorporate that and try to build on it.
Mm-hmm.
So with the lack of convention stuff for you to not necessarily worry about, we know that you're a writer. So did that help you pass some time? You've been writing?
Well, yeah, of course, my wife has had an amazing list of projects over the last year. Most of which involve going to Menards, buying lumber and paint and, all this stuff. So it's not that I haven't been busy, but yes, I do enjoy writing. I got into writing, trying to think when I was asked to write if I wanted to do some trapping articles for Illinois Outdoor News, I think in the summer of 2015. And I started writing for them. They come out every 2 weeks. So I try to have something every 2 weeks. And I started writing for some other publications. I've done some writing for Trapper's Post. I did a 2 years of basically how to do legislative action for Bob Noonan and Trapper's Post. And that seemed to go over well. It was probably over a lot of people's heads, but I have seen people go back to it and they start having problems in their state. And people have told me that it's helped. I've done some writing, of course, for American Trapper and Trapper's World, most of the major trapping magazines. I haven't submitted anything to like Fur Fish Game yet. I think I'm a little intimidated with that, but everybody tells me I should. I'll probably do that sometime. I grew up on that magazine. I got a subscription in, I think, 1969. My mother bought me a subscription for Christmas, and I've had a subscription to that magazine ever since.
Yeah.
And it, a lot of what I learned to do, I kind of learned to do through Fur Fish Game back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So
it's same. I think I have a couple years later than you. I think 71 was when I first got Fur Fishing Game subscription, and basically haven't missed a year since. So it's definitely a iconic trapping publication, and a lot of them have come and gone over the years too. Trapping publications, there haven't been, or they've changed hands. The original Trapper that was published by Chuck Spearman years ago, and of course yeah, then it became the Trapper Predator Caller. It's kind of, it had those boom years, and now they're still in existence, but it's not. And I think the current publisher would like to see it up and going again, and bring it back to maybe where it was at one time. But yeah, Fur Fishing.
Yeah, it's a lot skinnier than it used to be.
Yeah.
They had some problems there, especially with a lot of the trapping organizations. When they changed hands, they just weren't very responsive to the trapping organizations, which were using that publication as
right.
That was where they published, all their association news, and that went out to their members. And so they lost a lot of that. Bob Noonan started up Trapper's Post about that time, and a lot of people crossed over to that, and they've not gone back to Trapper and Predator Caller. I don't know. I get both of them. In fact, there's not a trapping publication out there that I don't get.
Yeah.
And each has their own particular little niche. So I don't badmouth any of them. I like them all.
Yeah, for sure. Anything out there promote trapping. Here's kind of an interesting. This is just a observation though. So 70s and 80s or whatever, the Trapper at that time would actually send magazines to our shop that we could sell to our customers as they came in. Occasionally someone would come in with a stack of magazines and want to sell them or donate them or get whatever. And we normally, back in the day, we could put them in the shop and people would pick away at them and buy some and whatever. It was never a problem. And now it's like nobody's interested in really picking those up. It seems odd to me. I guess
the digital world.
Yeah, times have changed. So
times have, and trappers have to change with it.
Sure.
I can't. It's hard for me to think of a group that is more resistant to change than trappers are.
Yeah.
But that it is what it is, and the people that are getting into this now, of which we've had a pretty big flush over the last year of new people that have come into trapping.
Right.
I mean, you've seen all of the suppliers saw that this year.
We had a great year.
I mean, I think in March and April, everybody was thinking, man, I can't imagine how many of these suppliers are going to go out of business this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real threat. And almost everybody I've talked to has had one of the best years they've ever had.
Yeah.
Especially with a fur market that's about as far in the toilet as it can get.
Right.
And I think a lot of that's attributable to people that are coming into trapping that really aren't coming into trapping for the money. they're coming into trapping because they see that as a natural extension of something else they're doing in the outdoors.
Yeah.
You know, and they want to catch a coyote, or they want to catch a bobcat, or they want to catch a beaver, and they're not interested in necessarily catching 100 beaver, but they like to catch one. You know, and I've seen in the past, I've seen a lot of trappers kind of look down on those folks because they're not really trappers, right? But these are the people that are going to determine whether we survive or not.
Exactly.
Because that guy might get into trapping. He might only be there for a season or two. He might catch his bobcat and not want to trap anymore. You know, he's got his trophy. But his family is going to have a favorable view of trapping. His kids are going to have a favorable view of trapping. And we need as much of that as we can get. So I want to do whatever we can to keep these people. And a lot of them are millennials. You know, you get this. I mean, it just amazes me. There's so many people out there that are coming to trapping, and I think a lot of them are coming to it from maybe bow hunting, you know, white-tailed deer. And these are people that don't think twice about spending a couple $1,000s for a Raven crossbow, or spending, you know, $5,000 a year on a deer lease. So when they come into trapping, they're not really questioning what it costs. No. Now me, I'm cheap. I grew up pinching pennies when you're trapping. I mean, pinching them hard. My favorite trap that's out there when it first came out, my favorite canine trap, and Charlie, you use them too, is that MB550. I was very resistant to getting them because of the cost.
Sure.
Of course, once I got them and started using them, that all went by the wayside. But and yet I see these guys coming into trapping, and the first thing they're buying are these Cadillac traps, right?
Yep.
It just doesn't seem to work the way it did when I got into trapping, where everybody starts at the bottom end and kind of works their way up.
Right. When we started trapping, you were a muskrat trapper generally first, particularly if you're from the muskrat country, and then maybe you caught a mink, and then maybe you wanted to, you know, progress into catching foxes or, you know, whatever. We didn't have raccoons. We had raccoons, but nothing like we do now in numbers when I was a kid.
And no coyotes.
Right. And then the coyotes started showing up later. But yeah, you kind of, and now it's funny, guys that are very proficient coyote trappers come in and they want to catch a muskrat or something and they're lost. You know, it's how to go.
Right.
You know? So,
of course, you know, my first muskrat traps, I paid 50 cents a piece for a little underspring jump, number one underspring jump at Kmart.
Yeah.
You know, you can't find that stuff like that anymore.
Right. So, I think really, as far as the beginner trapper, if they're buying the 550, it's really much easier for them to use it. For one thing, it's adjusted, the tension's already set, night latched. It's not like they're getting a stock Bridger, Duke, or whatever else that would need some mechanical attention. Yeah,
exactly.
So, and it's you know, it's obviously a good quality trap. So, I mean, it's just basically, you know, it's not much of a stretch for them to spend that kind of money because their perspective is they've been spending money like that all along, really. So
it's entirely different. You're right. It's an entirely different approach than when I got into trapping. It's not a starting point for them.
Yeah,
like it was for us. They've got a very specific goal in mind when they start trapping.
I think,
and, you know, how well did your kits, like your canine kits?
Oh, very well, very well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we got some trappers that just take advantage of it. It's a little bit little bit more reasonable, and they get all this stuff, and they'll buy that just for the sake of, because they get all that stuff, but then they order a bunch of other stuff. But in general, just new trappers, they just get the kit, and we get so many of them that call us a few days later and say, "Hey, I set it out and I caught a coyote 2 days later," or whatever.
Yeah,
all excited. So
you know how many years I trapped before I caught a coyote? How many years I trapped before I caught a fox?
Yeah,
because there wasn't anybody out there telling me how to do it.
There's no secrets now.
Nope. Whole different ballgame.
I'll tell you another thing,
and that's great. That's great, because ease of entry into this is what we need. The easier we can make it, the more people you're going to appeal to.
The couple things on that. Just we had a customer come in. I remember him coming in specifically. I mean, he bought deer scent or whatever. He would come in like 2 or 3 years in a row and just walk around the shop, and I'd say, "Can I help you?" And he said, "No, I'm just looking," or whatever. So then, like, after he did that 2 or 3 years, he finally came in and he says, "I just want to start trapping, and I've been so intimidated, so overwhelmed by all of this." But he just needed to start. I can't remember if he bought a kit or what the scenario was, but and now he's been into it for 4 or 5 years now, and he's gone in full bore. He's putting up for the whole thing, so these guys are out there, but I think that sometimes that initial step's pretty intimidating. So,
well, the thing that I think really started making it easy for people to trap was when the whole dog proof thing started.
Oh, sure.
Because the coon population is very high. I mean, it's like the muskrat population was when we were starting. I mean, if you're going to pick an animal to start with that's, quote, easy, it's going to be a raccoon.
Right.
They're everywhere. They're easy to trap. They're easy to, certainly with something like a dog proof, they're easy to hold. It doesn't cause damage to the animal. You can, like say, you can, as long as someplace doesn't have like cats and you're using a fishy bait, you can set it right there in the barns,
yeah,
and not have a problem and be very successful. And I think that's the important thing is if somebody's out there on their own, they don't have anybody mentoring them, and they're not going with family or whatever, and they're just starting to trap all on their own, there has to be a reward fairly fast if you're going to keep them. It's like taking a kid hunting. I mean, I don't know too many kids that would stay with deer hunting for 10 years if they never shot a deer.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, I trapped for 10 years before I ever caught a fox. But I was catching other stuff at the time.
Yeah. Jane, I don't know. Do you follow Steve Ranella at all? The Meat Eater podcast, or?
I've watched some of it. I don't tend to like a lot of the reality TV stuff. I've got the same problem. I have the same problem in my movie. My wife smacks me all the time because I point out that's not right. It doesn't work that way, or that's not how the history was. And so I have somewhat the same problem with the reality TV.
He's not so much of a reality guy, or that's not my perspective on him, but he has done a tremendous job promoting trapping, I think.
I agree.
Both social media, Instagram, YouTube, on his podcast, he's had trapping as a subject more than once.
And he's popular, so he's getting into a lot of He's popular. He's getting into a lot of households too.
Yeah, and he's not affiliated with the NTA or FTA. In fact, I've tried to contact him 2 or 3 years ago, and it's like there was like a wall. I just never got anywhere with it. He does a lot of his podcasts on site, like he'll do it at a stage and sell tickets. And I thought, it'd be cool just to cool just to have him come and do a podcast at an FTA convention or whatever. And I couldn't get anywhere with it, because I thought that his crossover appeal to this much broader audience would be a great promotion for trapping, to let people that don't trap see a trapping convention, that kind of thing. And to be honest, I just never really got anywhere with it. But he, up to his credit, he's done such a good job with the promotion of trapping, and he's probably brought a lot of those hunters to trapping. I have no doubt that he's affected it significantly, actually. Even over some of the History Channel shows, those have certainly helped too. The
whole Mountain Men series,
yeah,
Marty Myrato and Tom Orr.
Yeah.
Well, and I give Tom Miranda a lot of credit too.
Sure.
I mean, he's been out there. He'll tell anybody that asks that he wouldn't be able to do what he did if he hadn't learned what he learned from trapping.
Yeah.
So yeah, those people are important to us, I think, because they're getting into households that are pro hunting,
Sure.
or say pro consumptive use, but maybe haven't ever been involved with trapping before, and they're a natural ally if we could just get to them.
Sure.
And those folks are doing a good job of getting to them.
I will say though, Kent, it's interesting that we're clearly not fully understood by hunters that don't trap. A lot of them have a negative perspective of trapping or trappers. Some of it's left over from back in the day when maybe their grandpa was a dog hunter, fox hunter, or whatever, and there's always just been that riff, and a lot of it is just misinformation or assumed information that they've taken on over the years about trappers. But we do have an issue with some, not all, but some of the hunting population, that they're just not fully embracing us. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've had some issues with some coon hunters in the past, and to some extent bird hunters. And a lot of it is they don't understand.
Right.
They've never been involved with trapping. I mean, you get a bird hunter with a MD5 who gets a dog caught in an MD550, and they can't even figure out how to turn the dog loose.
Right.
Dog's not hurt, but they can't figure out how to get it out of the trap.
Right.
Certainly the equipment has gotten better in that sense. We're less likely to cause damage, if you get a coon dog or a bird dog caught. But we still need to educate these dog hunters on the fact that this land is multi-use. It's not there just for them. It's not there just for us.
Right.
I think part of that, I think trappers have, regardless of whether we're doing everything right and everything legal, I think we still have an ethical obligation to do the best we can, not to catch somebody's dog.
Sure.
I mean, for a variety of reasons. One thing, first, it's the right thing to do. Second, the optics of catching somebody's dog is not great.
It's
because everybody, the assumption is going to be the trapper's wrong. Whether it is or not, that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So we need to do everything we can to keep that from happening. And one of the things we can do is we can educate the hunters too. I know Minnesota Trappers Association started a number of years ago with a zip tie kit that
Sure.
they gave out to bird hunters, that so they get their dog without any experience on how the trap works. They can get their dog out of a like a 220
Mm-hmm.
before it causes serious damage to the dog. And that sort of thing is great. And I find that the bird hunting community, and I'm involved with a lot. I've got drone setters, and I'm involved with a lot of those people on social media, and they are pretty receptive to the idea that public land is multi-use, and there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be other people, and that they want to know how to deal with a dog in the trap. They want to know how to keep their dog as safe as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I jump in a lot, in the comment section on some of these places where people are talking about this, and try to explain that public land isn't there just for you. It's there for people that walk their dogs. It's there for people that bird hunt. It's there for people that trap, and it's a multi-use. So we got to figure out how to live together without destroying the whole thing for all of us.
Right.
I see bird hunters and coon hunters. They should be natural allies. We just have to get over some of this. And like you said, Charlie, some of it's historical. Back in the days in the 80s when coons were bringing $30-$40 a piece, coon hunters saw trappers, and vice versa. Trappers saw coon hunters as competition.
Sure.
When coon prices are $5 a piece, that's not so much an issue.
Yeah. That we've talked about it before on this podcast, but that 70s and 80s the fur boom years, there were so many issues with all of that. It was, it created so many. It had its good side, don't get me wrong, but there were so many issues and so many problems created by so many people out there after fur. I don't know that the prices would be nice to see like that again, but there's so many problems that come along with that. We even saw that in 2013, really, so
Yes.
yes, we saw that.
I'll give you an example. In 1980, I think it was 84 when it topped out on coon. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a small town, mostly rural, and there weren't a lot of kids trapping. So I knew all these farm kids. So I got permission to trap lots of different places, to the point where I never trapped any place where I didn't have sole permission. In 1984, there wasn't a single property that I got on that somebody hadn't already set traps.
Yeah.
Even if I was there on opening day. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I'll bet I lost. I lost probably close to 20% of the traps I set that year.
Yeah.
Because these people, if they're not ethical enough to ask permission, they're certainly not ethical enough to leave the trap there or the catch there if they see it.
Right.
It was terrible.
Right.
I'm with you. I can live without prices being that high.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a trapper, you enjoy it, then right now is your time, so
right.
It's
now, that being said, and I've had conversations with Guy Grunwald about this, there needs to be a market.
for sure.
If trapping is going to survive, there has to be a market. So not having a market for coon is the worst thing that can happen to coon trapping, because people get out of it. They don't trap much. And then when they when they come back in, there's all these inexperienced people trapping coon that have never trapped coon before. And, they're setting 220s where dogs can get in them. There's just a whole myriad of problems that exist.
Right.
When you don't have educated trapper public, I guess is the way I want to put it.
Right. In 2013, when we saw that pretty big spike, I mean, that was an amazing first sale. Looking back at that,
$35 average I had that year.
Yeah, and we immediately saw this overnight spike in interest in trapping.
Did you keep any dog-proof traps on the?
It was a battle.
Shelf in 2014.
Yeah, it was a battle. And then and the NTA was in Ohio, Sydney, Ohio, I believe, that year, and that convention was attended over the top. I mean, it was crazy. But we saw so many people who come in and say, now it's worth doing or whatever. It was all just completely based on money, and of course we didn't see them 2 years later or a year later, because it basically started as soon as it peaked, it started falling apart pretty much right away. But that's another whole podcast. But I mean, it went away pretty quick.
Trappers are always a year or two behind the curve.
Yes.
Of where the market is.
Yeah.
But
Definitely. So, anyways, it was but we don't see those guys anymore. And we complain about the general trappers not being members of associations or supporting trapping, and they don't. A lot of them don't. Some do. But I mean, that group that just jumps in when prices are high, they're not going to support trapping organizations. They're basically just in it for the quick buck, essentially, and then just move on. So, but
and I'm not sure how we bridge that divide between people that are trapping for the commercial aspect of it, and are people that are trapping because they're like you and me. They're always going to trap. It doesn't matter what the price is.
Right.
And we need to figure out how to do that because we need both sides.
Yeah.
We need as many of these people as we can get. I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
We're unique. We're unique in terms of a lot of these outdoor passions because we do have a commercial aspect to it. You don't have that in whitetail deer hunting.
Right. And
so they don't ever have that.
Right. Trapping in other states too, the perspective on the state that you go to, some of them look at it as a commercial license, essentially. It's not, here in Indiana, you just buy a trapping license and, but in some states, the perspective is that it's a commercial type license. For instance, South Carolina, we kind of ran into that perspective there when we were down there this spring or last winter. And the regulations sometimes coincide with that commercial perspective as well, even though, and I guess I kind of wondered at the time whether or not if that hampers young or new trappers getting into it. I hope it doesn't. So, but
I suspect it probably doesn't the residents too much. It might hinder people from trying to go from state to state, which is a pretty cool experience for anybody that's ever done it.
We have some similar interests outside of trapping, and I think lots of trappers like this kind of have this perspective. They like maybe a homesteading perspective, or at least the idea of growing and having, raising some chickens and I know you were raising some quail a year ago.
Yep, still am. I get about 35 eggs a day.
Okay.
I got broiler chicks in the basement right now. So,
Okay.
in fact, what I was working on before the podcast today was I'm building a smaller version of Joel Salatin's chicken tractor
Okay.
for the broiler chicks.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I know you and I both like to garden and we like to cook.
Yeah.
Which I see as natural extensions of hunting and trapping. My mother was a home ec teacher.
Okay.
Well, she didn't really like to cook, but she liked to teach.
Yeah.
And here I am. I'm growing up in the '60s, and I'm shooting or trapping all these things and it's this meat that you can't buy anywhere.
Right.
And it occurred to me, it seems like just a shame to do nothing but fry it. So I got started in the '70s, learning how to do, I guess some people would call it gourmet cooking, but to me, it was just experimenting with some of these various meats. And as everybody knows, wild meat ain't pork.
No.
You have to handle it a whole different way than a lot of the meat you're used to cooking with.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife loves that.
Well, that's good.
My wife, I am the person that deals with the top of the stove, and my wife is the person that deals with the oven.
Okay.
She bakes and I cook. I don't measure anything, which of course, since baking is a science, you better measure or you're just not going to come out right.
Yeah, you're shooting in the dark. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I cook with taste in the stove. So,
yeah.
So we are a good mix because she does the baking and I love things like pies and bread and stuff like that. And I do most of the cooking on top of the stove.
Yeah.
And if she cooks, she wants to cook in her Instant Pot, which to me is an anathema to me. I mean, you need to be on the stove sauteing.
Yeah.
The other thing I was doing today was starting seeds. Now I noticed that your first shed has turned into a seed starting.
It has. I want to build another separate room within our pole barn as a seed starting room, but I haven't got to that point yet. So I'm using my first shed. Yes. So
did you use new lights or did you just move the fluorescents that were in there?
No, I made just some like simple 2x4 frames to hold 3 shop lights off side by side, and so I've got 3 sets of those, and I could crank that room up. It's very well insulated. Just use a plug-in heater, and I can get it to 80 degrees. No.
Oh, that's nice. I usually start with a seed mat. I have the advantage of a greenhouse. When we bought this house 3 years ago, the first thing that we put in was a 22 by 36 foot greenhouse.
Yeah.
I raise orchids, which
yeah.
It seems odd for a trapper, but I've been doing that for most of my life. And there's always plenty of bench space for other plants.
Yeah.
This time of the year, there's a lot of seeds being started.
Going back to that, Kent, I think, a year ago as COVID struck, the reality of it, and the seed companies were all sold out and way behind filling orders. It was fortunately I had started in January and February, so I was in pretty good shape, but
same here.
It was and even this year they're most of them are doing very, very well with their sales. I know Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds shut their site down more than once where they first sent their catalogs out. And
Right.
I
Right.
noticed on Seed Savers Exchange yesterday they weren't accepting any new orders, and it's like, I mean, what a. So I think, and a lot of those people, I mean, a lot of trappers do this kind of stuff, I think, as far as having a garden and that kind of thing. So
We're hunter-gatherer types. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in your blood, right?
for sure. So I think this idea that a lot of these guys will still trap this upcoming year, that maybe you only trap this past season for the first time because it's just kind of maybe they took the time to go learn it, start to learn it, or just take that first step, you know. So it's kind of it's been an interesting time frame, to say the least, on a lot of this.
You know, I would be very interested. I'm a numbers guy, and I would be very interested to see some kind of a breakdown in these new licenses as far as what age we were attracting. I suspect a lot of them are the millennials.
Yep.
And well, you know, they have a different approach than we had. And the other thing they do is they appear to take instruction well, which my generation didn't necessarily do that as well. But they're perfectly comfortable with finding a YouTube channel that they like and really paying attention to how that person's doing it, and then going out and replicating what they're doing.
Yeah.
I know you and I have toward coyote and fox trapping, we have very similar setting styles. Both like the MB550. We both set tight up against the hole. But yet you go on YouTube, and there must be, well, as you know, if you've got 100 trappers out there, they're going to tell you 110 different ways to do things.
Yeah.
Everybody does it different. And the thing that's great about trapping, and that's where I think a lot of the art comes in, is if somebody's successful, they're not wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if the guy that's setting, 9 inches back from the hole and 3 inches offset to the right is catching a bunch of coyotes, and I'm setting tight to the hole, how can I tell him he's wrong?
Yeah.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not. He's not wrong at all. I will say that 9-inch back, 3-inch over guy seems like a lot of times comes and they'll talk about missing coyotes though.
We missed some too, Charlie. If you ever got snow to look at, you'll see we miss them too. They don't come quite. We make that last 6 inches.
Yeah, the snow is the great humbler.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost wish I didn't have to go out and check when there's fresh snow the night before.
That's a common thing.
Oh yeah. Have you seen? Some of the nuisance people, especially, are using a lot of cameras to let them know when they've got. Have you ever seen some of the videos that they run? These coyotes just literally dancing over this set. Might be there for 5 minutes dancing around and never put a foot on the pan.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely an eye opener, and we get that call all the time. It's like, just sit tight, just leave the trap there. Things will probably eventually connect. But and try not to lose any sleep over that, because it's just kind of a natural process of trapping. So, Ken, I think go ahead.
You and I both had situations where, at the end of the season, you pull your traps and you come back, by there a couple months later, and there's this big hole in the ground.
Yeah. Where
the coyotes and foxes have just worked it because the smell is there.
Yeah.
Everybody worries about a little rain washing away their lure or their bait. They know it's there. They may not have a particular interest in going there at whatever given point in time. But if it's in their territory, they'll be back.
Yeah. exactly. Going back to a little bit what we were talking about before, and I think you and I had talked about it in the past, this idea of educating trappers. We need to continue educating the youth, but I think we might be missing the boat with the older people that don't really know how to get into it. They don't know how to, they've got the resources. They probably got a little more time. They've got a vehicle, and they've got that interest, in doing it, but they really just are overwhelmed or don't know where to start. So I think we started a program prior to COVID a couple years ago where we did like a day-long seminar, more, we weren't going to turn anybody away, but it was more adult-oriented instruction. And
Very hands-on.
Yeah, very hands-on. It was very well received. And I think as organizations, it's probably something we need to focus on a little bit more. Here in Indiana, we have our Trappers Ed, state Trappers Ed classes, and those are fine, but they're not really teaching people per se how to trap per se. They're not really, they do to a point, but and some of them have 2-day classes where they set traps, check traps, but that's kind of the exception. Most of it deals with ethics, laws, which is all very, very important. And that we definitely, I'm not saying anything, but it's not the next step where
Safety.
yes, safety issues. So
It's very difficult for someone to take those trapper classes, except for the ones that might have the 2-day where they're going out in the field.
Right.
But for the most part, it's very hard for those people to take those 1-day classes and then go out and set traps and be successful.
Right.
Well, we didn't talk about locations. We didn't talk about reading sign. We didn't talk about pinch points. You didn't talk about all this stuff.
Right.
That's what makes you a successful trapper.
Right. And you're basically, if that person hasn't trapped and you're throwing all this information at them in an 8-hour day, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about all the different kinds of traps, and it's just so.
Yeah, the guy might come out of it knowing enough about the mechanics of trapping, but they don't have anything about the art of trapping.
Right.
I guess is the way I look at it. And that, I don't know if you and I have talked about this specifically, but I think we lost 2 generations. There's been a when I grew up, if somebody trapped, usually it's because their dad trapped or their grandfather trapped or they had cousins that trapped, right? And they just sort of kind of brought you along. We see now people coming into trapping that their grandfather didn't even trap.
Yeah.
So they've got several generations. They're several generations removed from the concept of trapping. And so they're trying to pick it up completely on their own.
Yeah.
Now, there's resources there today that if this had happened 20 years or 50 years ago, we'd be dead in the water because the resources weren't there.
Right.
But today there are resources. There's videos, DVDs, there's YouTube channel, there's a lot of the blogs can be very useful. People call you. I mean, how many phone calls do you get a year? Somebody wanting to know how to make a set for coyotes.
It's hard to say, Kent. That I even had 2 or 3 today, in fact. So
there's resources out there that didn't used to be.
Yeah,
and that's good. But nothing takes the place of somebody taking you out and showing you how to make a set.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing that'll flatten that learning curve any better than that, I don't think. And there's just not mentors out there for these people.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap this up. Is there any conclusion things you want to mention before we jump off here?
Um, it's we're in tough times. I mean, you look at what's happened in Mexico. You look at, I don't know if you're aware of the fight they've had for trapping beaver on public land in Oregon. You know, Colorado, which was the first state to lose the majority of their trapping rights, they certainly lost the ability to set foothold and body grip traps. All they were left with cage traps, and there was a concerted effort to take that away from them this year. You know, Illinois had anti-bobcat bill, the anti-trapping bill for bobcat. I mean, it's cropping up all over the country, and it would appear that there's been a concerted effort by the antis to drop trying to do things on a national level. We're not seeing the lawsuits on the national level that we saw. We're not seeing people try to push legislation, you know, in Washington like we used to. But what we are seeing is a whole myriad of legislative and community actions on the state and community level, where to be honest, it's a lot harder to stop. So my advice would be for anybody that wants to trap to get involved. We have to get involved because you're just going to see the dominoes start falling. And once they start to fall and states and communities can start citing these as precedents, it's going to make it easier for them.
Sure.
You know, if a community wants to outlaw, running dogs for coyotes, for example, and they can talk in their town meetings about all the people around them that have done it, it starts seeming like, well, that's the norm. Why aren't we conforming with the norm?
Right.
The same thing's going to hold true with trapping.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what my advice would be. Get involved. Join the FTA or the NTR, or better yet, join both. For sure, join your state trapping association or FTA chapter, you know, if your state has a strong presence with the FTA, or again, join both. I mean, for $100, you can pretty well cover the board.
Yeah.
And is it important? Is it important enough to you? I mean, it is to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I do get kind of tired of 10% of us trying to hold the line, you know, and carry the water for the other 90%. And we get overwhelmed. And I guess it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I see what we can do if we all can unite together, especially if we then start drawing in some of these other interest groups.
Right.
You know, like we were talking about National Wild Turkey Federation or Whitetails Unlimited or Pheasants Forever. I mean, these folks that are our natural allies.
Yeah, with that, look what we've done with just the 10% that are members.
I know.
And
I know.
Look what could be done if we got up to 40 or 50%.
Oh yeah. You know, I look at and it's kind of interesting because I deal with this in Illinois a lot personally with people. I mean, I get phone calls, you know, some guy, you know, this 80-year-old trapper whose grandson has got him on the computer trying to figure out how to file an electronic witness slip. And I'll get a phone call, you know, as in real time, they're trying to do it.
Yeah.
And to be able to walk them through it and to listen to that little note in their voice where when they've successfully accomplished this and accomplished something they've never done before.
Yeah.
And now we got that guy. We ever ask him to file anything again? By God, he's going to be on it.
Yeah.
So the legislative action is critical to our survival. And the only way you're going to make that successful is if you have an awful lot of people involved.
So first step, guys, please join your state organizations. Please join national organization, NTA, FTA. I think Sportsman's Alliance is another good one. So
Sportsman's Alliance is a good one too.
yeah, that's kind of my closing remark that I mention often. So
Yep. Then the next step is tell your friend to do the same thing.
yeah,
Exactly. Or your family.
Yeah.
I talked my brother-in-law and sister into joining the NTA and the ITA this year. They've never done anything like that before, but
Yeah.
my sister used to go on the trap line with me when we were growing up. So she has some fond memories of it, and she says, for the 50, 60 bucks a piece it's going to cost us to join both organizations, I'm willing to do it. And that's what we got to try to get. We got to get people that they're in favor of what we're doing to put a little money, toward it. And we're not asking for a lot. One decent coyote will join both organizations, even a Midwestern coyote.
right. Or buy 2 or 3 less MB 550s.
Yeah. Exactly.
All I have to say to end this out is basically just thanks for being on the show, and appreciate everything you do behind the scenes. And I think you're great for the NTA, and you should start a blog.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another deadline, right?
Not if it's yours.
It is. It's always a privilege to talk to you guys. I love what you guys do for trapping too. I mean, one of the great things about seeing this, as on the executive council of the NTA is at the conventions where you've got the trappers and the vendors together at these conventions, and how important the vendor is for these trappers. I mean, you guys you're the best place to get a question answered about a piece of equipment, without a doubt. You how many? Well, you guys don't carry that many, but a lot of these vendors might carry 12 or 15 different lines of lures.
Yeah.
So a guy that's looking for something that'll fit their particular situation, they could go and talk to a vendor and probably get a pretty good rundown of what'll work in their area.
Right.
I'm very impressed, and it is a tough business, man. I don't know too many people that go into business with a lower profit margin on items than trapper vendors do.
Yeah. A lot of trappers don't
I don't
realize.
see a whole lot of stuff that's 100% market.
Yeah.
On your shelves.
Yeah, I mean, traps were trading money basically. It's crazy. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kent, we sure appreciate you being on. Appreciate what you do for trappers, and
Catch up to you this summer at some conventions.
looking forward to getting back to the convention circuit.
Yeah, haven't seen you guys. I think the last time I saw you guys was at your deal in October last year, or was it October? It was the last week of September.
In 2019.
2019, yeah. Been a long dry stretch.
It has been.
And I miss that a lot. One of the things I really enjoy about all these conventions and banquets and everything is to get the opportunity to talk to other trappers.
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Looking forward to this next year.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.